And we are live for another week of FTMIG on the Midas Letter Network. Today, you will notice that when this camera comes away from my face, it is actually someone other than Carl, because before we get into the rest of the stuff that we're doing today, we are starting with Tony Baracy, VP of Exploration from Triumph Gold Corp. How are you doing today? Pleasure to come on the show. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Appreciate that. As we all know, some of our investors have been looking into TIG over the last little while. But today you came up with new results. So I shot you guys over an email. You're in Toronto, and I thought we need to get you in here because who else better to talk about them than the man who planned the whole thing out?
Yeah, no, it was quite serendipitous that I was here, and I'm awfully glad to be on the show.
No, absolutely, I appreciate it. So for those who don't know you, you work obviously in exploration, but can you give us a little bit of background of who you are before we dig into what you found today?
Sure, I am an exploration geologist. I've been working on porphyry and epithermal style gold and copper projects throughout British Columbia, Yukon, and a few other places for about the last 14 years.
Oh, wow.
I have a doctorate from Dalhousie University in economic geology, and I've done quite a wide variety of work looking at how metals come to concentrate within mountain building scenarios.
Yeah.
And that's some of the experience that I brought to this property, trying to find gold and copper. And it's sort of every explorationist's dream to take the theories that they know and be able to apply them, and then to have success with that.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what it sounds like you guys have done today. Another hole coming out. This is now 2 that have been announced in the last few weeks. And I think it's interesting to note as well is that in doing more due diligence and digging into Triumph, this company was actually, or this land was mined some years ago, and you came in, you took months and months going over the different drill results and different information that's there, and you made a different plan. What was different this time that now you're coming up with these really, really great porphyry results?
Sure. So, there's a long history of exploration of this property, starting about 1930. The old-time prospectors were coming out and poking away and finding gold, and there's a bunch of old and even current placer mines where people are mining gold that's in the creeks on the property. What we're looking for is gold in the bedrock. In 2006, our company's founder, Bill Harris, consolidated a whole bunch of different properties that were owned by various companies and individuals at different times into a very large land package. It's 200 square kilometer land package.
Massive.
It's a really big property. And that was sort of the first step to being able to take a broad approach to exploration, because when you have 200 square kilometers that are divided up into 30 different companies and everyone's not talking to one another, it's hard to know how the geology connects together and how you can conduct good exploration. So that was the first step. And then between 2006 and 2012, our company, under a different name, did a tremendous amount of exploration on the property, and that culminated with the development of 3 43-101 compliant resources. So sort of a definition of how much metal is in the ground in 3 different locations. That took a lot of work to do, and they need to be commended on taking that approach and going through all of the effort that it takes to do that. But during the last couple of years of that definition drilling, where they're defining those resources, they stepped away from pure exploration, not looking at the property as an exploration target, but rather just get the drills in the right configuration to define how much metal is in the ground in these known locations. So the new approach that was taken after 2012 was to look at the property purely as an exploration play.
Okay.
In 2016, I came onto the project as a technical consultant, and what we did was we looked at all of the huge amount of data that had been collected from the property, and we tried to identify locations where there were really good grades of gold and silver, but not a good explanation for why that was there.
Okay.
And we found in particular 3 drill holes that had excellent grade in the revenue area that weren't associated with the main control on mineralization at revenue. So revenue is a mineral, one of our deposit areas where the main geological control on the mineralization is, or was thought to be, the emplacement of a diatreme. So a diatreme is the root of a highly explosive volcano. It sort of looks like a golf tee in shape, like this. And all around the edge of the diatreme, the rock is all busted up and fluids moved through it. The fluids were rich in gold and copper and molybdenum, and they precipitated those metals. And so that's why there's some mineralization there. But we found mineralization there that wasn't associated with the emplacement of that diatreme. And when we went to the property to follow up on those results and looked at the core that was drilled, we found that it looked like porphyry-style mineralization. And porphyry-style mineralization that predated the emplacement of that diatreme, and therefore could not possibly be related to the emplacement of the diatreme. So now you imagine a landscape that has something that's the shape and size of a volcano. And most of the exploration had been focused around the edge of that volcano. But in fact, that volcano was emplaced into something that was much, much larger and pre-mineralized. So that's the approach that we took. We had the hypothesis that that was the case, and we started doing exploration over, instead of a 1 kilometer diameter area, a 6 kilometer diameter area. And that's the new approach that we brought to the project. And that's, in a nutshell, what has brought us to the point of having these successes that we're having now.
Yeah, and if we can have our crew pull up, I've got your investor presentation. Just guide me to where we're looking at, because it's always nice to be able to see a different area and look at what exactly we're looking at, because I believe there's a diagram in here that really goes through, oh, here we go, revenue, but there's one that's a little bit more zoomed in than that, just so people can get a little bit of a visualization of what we're talking about. Because you had spoken about...
Oh, if you go up one here, there, you can, this is a model where you can see the golf tee. See the big green golf tee? That's the revenue diatreme. That's the root of the highly explosive volcano. And in the past, exploration focused on this stuff. But there were these 3 drill holes that were drilled outside of the diatreme and away from it. And they had great grades, the kind of grades that anybody would want to mine. You know, like hole 28 had 145 meters of 0.22% copper, half a gram gold, and 0.11% molybdenum. That's more molybdenum than most molybdenum mines have. And what we identified was that that mineralization was not associated with this. It was associated with this massive thing. And so that was then our target for exploration.
Gotcha. Right, and see, this is why I brought up, you get up, you get to show everybody, people can start putting it in their head, that's what he was talking about. But no, it's nice to hear, because you've had a lot of things come out in the last while, and going back on porphyry. You had briefly explained a bit, is porphyry something that you find everywhere? Is that something unique for people who, you know, they're just getting into mining, maybe they came over from cannabis stocks, like, what is going on? Everything's going crazy, they want to learn more. What's a porphyry, and what exactly have you found?
Right. So in geology, there's a number of different things that people call porphyries. So it's very confusing, even with geologists, what you're talking about when you're talking about a porphyry. In this case, what we're talking about is a porphyry-related mineralizing system. So it's basically a deposit type, a kind of way that metal accumulates. And porphyry deposits are a type of deposit that forms from an intrusion, so a body of magma that comes up to a high level in the Earth's crust. And as that intrusion is crystallizing and changing from molten to solid at this high level in the Earth's crust, it has a whole bunch of things that create high pressure. So there's a bunch of water vapor in there, and there's an increase in the volume of the body as it crystallizes, and that cracks the rock around it. Yeah. And as it cracks the rock around it, those fluids move up into the rock and they form veins, and the veins have copper and gold and molybdenum in them. That's right. So they're very large deposits because they're on the scale of intrusions, as opposed to some gold deposits, which might be on the scale of just a single vein or a couple of veins. Yeah. So this is something that's very large, but it's really quite low grade compared to many other types of deposits. Mm-hmm. So you tend to get porphyry deposits in areas where you have two tectonic plates, and one is going underneath the other. They're being pushed together, and one goes underneath the other, and the one that's going underneath melts, and it comes up, and it makes this intrusion come up into usually where there's already some mountains from the plates crushing up against one another. And that's the environment that we're in Yukon, where we're looking for these porphyries. And yeah, so that's the kind of area where you look for these things.
And it's interesting to note that, because you're talking about grades as well. I know we've seen some grade results come out where you see these really high, 40 grams per ton, whatever, but very, very small sections. This is rather large, and from what my understanding is that when you're finding a good grade, and we'll talk about that in a second, because apparently you guys have found actually a very good porphyry, especially in Yukon, in that area. But when you're looking for it, when a major comes in, because you guys also have Goldcorp, that is, I believe they own like 19.99% of the company, and there's Xinjiang, I might be getting that name wrong there, but two majors are going in, and what they're looking for are economies of scale. They want something they can mine for years and years and years. They don't just want a really rich, tiny area, they want a large area. Have you found, or are on the premise of, or precipice, I should say, of finding what they're looking for something to buy out in the future?
Sure. Okay, so here's the thing about porphyries, is they're very large, but they're very low grade compared to other types of deposits. And because they're very large, it takes forever to prove that you've got something that's big enough to have the full amount of metals that you would need to mine the porphyry. Yeah. So what we've done this year is, and to some extent last year as well, is just the very first step of showing that you're really onto something. Yeah. Okay, so all along the western side of North America, there are probably 10,000 porphyries, and most of them have very, very low grade. And some of them have slightly higher grade, kind of just enough to tease you and make you want to do more exploration on them. Yeah. And most of the exploration properties that people are conducting exploration on right now do not have a single drill intersection over sort of open pit sized exploration intersection that is economic grade. Most of them only have something that's close enough to it that it's still worth looking for some more. Yeah. Well, what we've done now is we've made an intersection that's over an open pit size distance, 313 meters, that is undoubtedly mineable grade. Okay.
Good to hear.
So whereas out of that 10,000 porphyries that are along Western North America, with 99% of them having not yet had an economic style intersection, this one has. So we've now risen to the top of the heap with regards to having a long intersection of potentially economic grade. We still have a tremendous amount of work in front of us, though, because we're going to have to try to define this grade of body over a very large area.
Yeah. Now, when you first started, though, this is, I mean, we saw the results come out today, and again, we are going to speak about it very specifically, but when you had Goldcorp approach you, what changed their mind? What made them want to actually say, you know what, I think they're onto something, because from what I know, I was talking to John and people, like, it's because of you. You were able to show them, hey, look, I really think there's something here. And you did so in a way that they were almost a controlling interest bought into this company, another massive major as well. What did they see? What were you able to show them? And it looks like now you're actually trying to prove it. But what was it that first caught their attention?
Right. Well, when Goldcorp bought coffee, I think that my impression is that they were looking to do more than just mine coffee. Yeah. They want to be wholly into the Yukon as a district play. So they were looking for good projects in the Yukon. And from the point of view of where our location is, where we're along a road, we have good infrastructure, we're not too far from them, there were a lot of synergies in that regard. Yeah. But I think the real catalyst for those guys to have become interested in investing in us was in 2016, after I had gone up and done the sort of meta-analysis, looking to see what the exploration potential of the property was. And I had gone back to Yukon in November of 2016 and presented that exploration potential at a conference that's hosted by the Yukon Geological Survey called Yukon Geoscience Forum. And the Goldcorp guys were there. They had recently acquired coffee. They had reviewed our project. They liked the location, they liked the road. Yeah. But from their point of view, it didn't cut it yet. But when we showed them the exploration potential, really, when we showed them that idea that I was just showing you, that the diatreme is just a limited part of a much larger system that has yet to be explored, that's what really convinced them, because they really bought into the exploration potential. And I think that they must be pretty pleased that they did, because in the end, you know, with just 2 years of work, we've shown that exploration potential to be an exploration reality.
Absolutely.
We've come up with the best intersection of porphyry style mineralization that the Yukon has seen yet.
And that's a perfect segue then. Let's go into the actual results from today. I have got it up here. We'll go over to the announcement here, where this is your one from today in your blue sky porphyry system, where we'll go down here. And going back, going away from rocks for a second, it was very interesting actually. I know Carl and I are going to talk about this later, the stock price as of today. I think we saw a lot of traders get out really early. It's rebounded very nicely and it's going in the right direction, which is fantastic to see, especially seeing myself. I'm an investor.
Sure.
I want to be able to see that myself.
Yeah, me too. But I'll let you guys decide why that's happening. As far as I'm concerned, it should all be about how much metal's in the ground. But there's a lot of other stuff going on.
It's amazing, and this has got nothing to do with Triumph whatsoever. It's amazing how many terrible companies have amazing stocks, and how amazing companies have terrible stocks. Yeah. You know, I've been studying it for years, and I still don't have answers. So it's nice to see when you've got a company who, you know, they've got a lot going for them and their stock's following. I'm like, okay, the market's actually paying attention for a second.
Right.
And just to be very clear as well, because you are on their website here, you guys are a client of ftmig.com, hence why we've got all of your news releases on here as well, just to full disclosure there moving forward. But going into this, so what are we seeing here? What are all these numbers? For someone who has no idea what's going on here, what does this read? What did you find?
Well, the real star of this show is hole 19. And hole 19 has 316 meters of over a gram per ton gold and almost 0.3% copper. And that's at any mine at any porphyry deposit, that would be part of what they would mine. Yeah. And it's higher grade than what a lot of existing porphyry deposits that are mined have. So that's, and it's also, you know, a lot of porphyry deposits will have a pit that, for instance, is only 200 meters deep, like from surface to the bottom. So this is very much a mineable sized interval. Now, if you had a grade like that, you'd be able to afford to have a pit that's significantly deeper than 200 meters. Yeah. So that's what you're seeing with hole 1819. It's, if you look at the if you look at the gold times, or gold equivalents times meters, it works out to about 560.
Yeah, I think it's 63 or 64. I have it as well, but it's on Facebook. We don't like pulling
565 gold equivalent grams per meter. And if you look at just, not gold equivalent, but just gold times meters for intersections that were made on exploration properties last year, this intersection would have placed 8th in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the list that I'm referring to has just gold, whereas we have gold equivalent, which includes some other elements. But it shows the magnitude of how impressive this this intersection is.
And even just for some of our investors, because like a lot of us, we pay attention to numerous stocks and all that. And I saw someone post in our Follow the Money investment group, our investor group. In our Facebook, you'll see a post, and it shows that the same number. I think it was 564 or 63 grams of gold equivalent over times meters. It's amazing though, because that was higher than Sokiman, higher than Golden Ridge, and higher than Aben as well. And for anybody who's been watching stocks recently, all three of those have been really, really hot picks for stocks to be into. And it's interesting to see that this is just one of your holes, and then from that one hole, you actually did better than the others of the three. That's a good sign to see.
Yeah, no, it's right up there at the top of the list of stuff coming out of Golden Triangle, BC, Yukon. I think GT Gold just came out with a really good porphyry hit from northern BC, and I think we're just one or two above them for that one.
Yeah. Are you being modest there?
No, I think that really is the case.
Just very close. Now, you've got two really nice drill results over the last little while. What do you have coming up in the future? Because are you trying to show that these are obviously connected? Am I reading that properly?
Okay, so a lot of investors are only just sort of tuning into the story right now.
Correct,
and that's totally understandable. What we've put out so far this year are 3 press releases. And the first one has really passed people by because it was sort of our first one and people weren't following us. But we actually put out some pretty exceptional results in our very first press release, which is something that not really on anyone's radar.
Yeah.
And this is where we were drilling an area that's to the west of this blue sky porphyry that we're putting out results about right now. The blue sky porphyry was actually a discovery that was kind of partly made in an effort to follow up on some previously known higher grade mineralization, and we missed that mineralization and hit the blue sky zone porphyry instead, and then followed up on it. But this year we were able to follow up on that original high grade mineralization that we had been trying to find when we first hit the blue sky porphyry. And we call that the WAU breccius, spelled W-A-U, because it's got a bit of tungsten and gold.
If we can get my computer back up the screen here, because just so we can keep talking, because it shows the blue sky on here as well. I believe this one may have, I don't know if it's the one you're talking, because I think this one's a little bit older here. But I know that you've got all your different sections, because you've got numerous different targets over the next little while. But sorry, I just wanted that up there so people can visualize what we're looking at as well.
Yeah, so the blue sky porphyry is over in here. And we found it while we were looking for some high grade stuff over in here. And at the beginning of this year, we thought that we had finally sort of zeroed in on where that high grade mineralization might be. We tied together 3 drill holes that had pierced this thing in the past. And did some 3D modeling, and we tried to hit it with 5 holes this year, and we hit it with every single one of them. So those were pretty great results. For example, 72 meters of 1.33 grams gold equivalent, 128 meters of 1.27 grams gold equivalent, 43 meters of 1.5 grams gold equivalent. So that was really our first big success this year, was defining that WAU breccia zone. And so I don't want that to sort of go by the wayside. I think this is a good opportunity to remind people that we've come out with quite a few successes this year beyond just the blue sky porphyry. Now with the blue sky porphyry, we've put out 2 press releases, And in those press releases, we've put out 6 drill holes that had very high grade copper and gold mineralization, as well as 2 drill holes from last year that hit the same zone that sort of got us into it, told us there was something there, and a couple of other holes that hit just a lower grade but still potentially economic halo around this thing. Yeah. So we've put, the reason why I've gone into this is because you sort of said that we put out 2 holes, but it's 2 press releases with quite a few holes. So we've really defined this zone very well over the area where we've defined it. Now we've put out all of the results that are related to the blue sky porphyry and the wow breccia. All of those results are out now for this year. There's no more drilling that we've done in those zones, so you can't expect to be getting any more results about those zones. Yeah. And you might wonder why we would hit something that's so awesome and then stop drilling it when we could have kept on going. And part of the reason why we did that is because we're keeping our eye on an even bigger prize.
Really?
That's right. So.
And whereabouts is that in here? Or are you allowed saying?
No, I will tell you. It's the whole bloody thing. Yeah. Okay? And it's hard to really wrap your head around it. But I think, and the main objective of what we're doing moving forward is to test and prove the hypothesis that all of the things that are going on across this 6-kilometer zone of different mineral types and mineral deposits and occurrences is related to one elephant that's underlying the whole thing.
Really?
Okay, so what we have here is a 6-kilometer from end to end, enormous, really intense multi-element soil anomaly with a coincident chargeability anomaly, so a geophysical anomaly. Yep. And contained within this vast area is, well, first of all, 2 resources, one at Nucleus and one at Revenue. The one at Nucleus is an epithermal style deposit, and it is so sort of high level, low temperature, gold rich style deposit.
Very nice.
Here we have a diatreme, which is the root of a highly explosive volcano that's busting up through the crust. And just on the edge of it, we have the wow breccia, which is a hydrothermal breccia. And then here we have the blue sky porphyry system. And then each of these other areas also has really interesting stuff. And we're convinced that all of the rock that hosts these mineralized systems is a passive host. So it's not the cause of the mineralization. The cause of the mineralization is yet to be reached. Okay? Yeah. So if you imagine you have something deep down underneath this, which we believe is the actual big porphyry system, and all of these things are coming up from it. So at high level over here, you get epithermal gold from fluids coming up through a fault system. Right smack in the middle of the thing, you have a volcano burst up out of it that's mineralized, coming up out of this porphyry intrusion underneath it. Over here, you have a structural zone where different faults were moving in different directions, and there's a whole bunch of permeability in the rock, so fluids can come up and cause a bunch of mineralization in the wow breccia and the blue sky zone. So moving forward with exploration on other parts of this area was imperative to testing that idea, because we need to figure out how all of this pieces together into a much larger story. Yeah. So we're not chasing rabbits here, we're chasing an elephant. Yeah. And all of these little things are the rabbits.
So I'm going to go into Mr. Speculation mode.
Sure.
I'm an investor. I have shares. What are you're quite confident that, or very hopeful that these are all connected. What does it mean if they are connected and we have really great porphyry results over on this side here, the nucleus as well. We have a lot of good things. What does it mean if there's an even bigger one underneath for the company, for any of these? Is it going to be like tenfold of everything else, if it does exist?
That's the hope, absolutely.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Well, hey, I appreciate it. We've exhausted your time. I know you're still in Toronto doing a couple other things. It's been fantastic having you on, because I guarantee a lot of the things you just said, that a lot of our investors who are maybe newer to mining, or even they are a little bit into mining, they love hearing stuff right from the source. I love talking to people who are smarter than me in their own different genres, and especially with this. I'm watching this and it's blowing me away, because I've never seen some of these things that you're pointing out. It's been really interesting. I appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll have you on again very soon. But really, just before we leave though,
sure.
How many more drills do you still have going on at the moment?
We're finished drilling at the moment. Yeah, we just mowed the last drill out a couple of weeks ago.
Gotcha.
We had 2 on the property. I think we still have about just under half of our results are yet to be released.
Gotcha.
So stay tuned.
We still got some more coming. Well, I appreciate your time very much.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely.